can't be affected overnight, but is a rethink required? I'm going back to Zaka Jacob for more on that. Over to you, Zaka.
All right, thank you for that. Joining us now is a Member of Parliament and member of the Standing Committee on Defence, and somebody who's very, very passionate and articulate about army-related issues. Member of Parliament Rajeev Chandrasekhar is now joining us live from Bangalore. Thanks very much, sir, for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. The tragic suicide of Gunner Roy Matthew has once again brought to focus this practice of the Sahayak system. Do you think the time has now come to end this British-era colonial regressive practice?
No, I think there has been this debate on this Sahayak issue, which sort of stops and starts and stops and starts again. I think it's time that we took a final call on this issue. I think the Sahayaks are born out of an old practice where an officer has attached to him a soldier who helps him during active duty, during war, during conflict. And over the years this has become something more than that, and therefore I think it's time for the army themselves to take a deep look at this situation of a Sahayak and put a stop to having Sahayaks in peacetime stations, because it is clear that Sahayaks have been used in roles that they are not supposed to be used for.
Okay. I'm just going back to the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Defence, the report from 2008-9. The committee had gone extensively into this issue and analysed it. I just want to quote a couple of lines. It says, "Jawans are recruited for serving the nation and not to serve the family members of officers in household work, which is demeaning and humiliating. The committee takes a serious view of this shameful practice, which should have no place in independent India. The committee expects the Ministry of Defence to issue instructions to stop this practice forthwith." Can the Ministry of Defence, can the Army headquarters push such a recommendation? This report was submitted in 2009. We're in 2017. Can they sort of indefinitely defer taking a decision after a recommendation by the Standing Committee on Defence?
No, I think, look, the standing committees can only make recommendations. Finally, it's, excuse me, it's for the government of the day and for the Army headquarters to actually take these decisions. But let me say this. I think there is a role for a Sahayak in combat areas to be attached to soldiers, to be attached to officers. But this practice of using Sahayaks in peacetime stations attached to the families of the officers is something that, in my opinion, is long overdue to be shut down. I think this incident, this tragic incident, this boy, the gunner is from Kerala, I am from Kerala, and this really should spur the Army headquarters into action to say, look, we will narrowly define the Sahayak, the occupation or the role, to being one where they are attached to officers in active combat stations and active combat duty, not to allow that Sahayak function to become more of a domestic help role, which is really an abuse of, which the Parliamentary Standing Committee said, is an abuse of the professionalism of a soldier and a Jawan who really joins the army to serve and defend the nation and not serve a family or serve as domestic help.
In this instance, you know, Gunner Roy Matthew, and you said he's from Kerala and so are you, his family have said that he was allegedly kept in confinement since this sting video went viral on the internet. He was allegedly kept in confinement. They've even spoken to the Malayalam newspaper Madhrubhumi, who's reported this. They've asked for an inquiry that is done outside of the army, because they feel if the army itself were to inquire into this case, there would be some form of institutional bias to try and protect those officers who may have been culpable in this case. Would you recommend a non-army inquiry to find out what exactly happened to Gunner Roy Matthew?
No, I think the family's concerns are to be respectful to them. Of course, they may have worries about a dispassionate investigation, but I trust the army to do this investigation, because I can't think of who else will do it. You can't have the local police do it. You can't have the local district magistrate do it. It is for the army to investigate what caused the death, this tragic death. And I have no doubt, I have the greatest faith in the army in terms of themselves investigating if there are issues of crime or issues of problems that arise in the army. But the army should not just investigate it. The army should start a real debate and discussion about dismantling the Sahayak system. Because like the defense minister of the country has said, this is something where the political executive and the leadership can only recommend to the army headquarters.
Yeah.
It is for the army headquarters, the commander-in-chiefs, to really take the initiative and say this is a dated process, this is a dated kind of a system. And contemporary India, the aspirations of the young men who join the army is really to be active soldiers and not to be domestic help in peacetime stations. So I think more than the investigation, I think the debate should be in the army headquarters for an urgent review and a stop of the Sahayak system.
Okay, and one final word. I mean, this is one of the lesser talked about aspects, and it's again it's once again come to light very tragically in the case of Gunner Roy Matthew, and that is that this video went viral on social media. I mean, given the times that we live in, I don't know what kind of sort of psychological heat this would have had on a young 33-year-old Jawan. Do you think the army is equipped to sort of sensitize its people, particularly its Jawans, on some of the ill effects of social media? And I'm asking you this also because you are an ardent and very effective user of social media.
No, look, I think we must not forget that the army as an institution and the defense forces generally as a group of institutions have very strict disciplinary expectations from the people who serve in them. So I think there is no room for people to violate the discipline as compelling the reason may be. So I think here the issue was that a soldier has breached the disciplinary requirements of the army and has gone and posted some things online, whether it is willfully or by accident, and that would have automatically resulted in a normal disciplinary proceeding within the army. But I think it is for soldiers, like the army chief has recently said, if there are grievances within soldiers, the senior officers must create institutional mechanisms to address those grievances. They must have a method of being able to tell the problems